In 2287, the Gunners Mercenary Company controlled the ruined Boston skyscraper that once belonged to Mass Fusion. Though they undoubtedly suspected that the facility housed useful technology, little did the Mercs know that the tech within was something so incredibly powerful that they would find themselves in the crossfire between the Brotherhood of Steel and the Institute. I'm the Irresolute Cartographer, and this is the story of Mass Fusion. The mid to late 21st century in the United States of the Fallout universe was a time of scarcity. Food shortages led to riots, while fuel shortages left cars undrivable and crippled the power grid. In Boston, Mass Fusion was created to solve the latter problem. In the spring of 2043, Carl Oslo, an electrical engineer who spent 6 years with Poseidon Energy, founded Mass Fusion with the goal of providing limitless power to countless homes from a single power plant. After a decade of research, Mass Fusion's Clean Power Initiative bore fruit, and the company was soon powering Boston. By 2070, they were the primary power provider for the entire state of Massachusetts, and by 2077, they finally reached their clean power goal. Unfortunately, they had been lying about being clean for over 20 years. Mass Fusion claimed to operate a single fusion reactor in the heart of downtown Boston, from which they distributed power across the region. It appears that what they really did was operate an enormous number of tiny fission reactors across the Commonwealth. They called these microreactors fusion distribution boxes, as though they were distributing the fusion power generated from their downtown Boston reactor. Were these truly distributing the power generated at their power plant, these distribution boxes would be called service panels, breaker boxes, or electric meters, as they are in real life. Unlike the fusion distribution boxes, these real-world devices aren't lead-shielded and don't make people sick from radiation poisoning if they're opened. Aside from the fact that Mass Fusion was fraudulently selling their power as fusion, the concept of microreactors isn't inherently a bad idea. The problem was that Mass Fusion's microreactors were temperamental and leaky. Beyond this, they produced waste in volumes far in excess of that fusion reactors would have, and that waste had to be stored somewhere. To that end, Mass Fusion established at least one containment shed in the Boston area and were attempting to bury waste barrels southeast of Lake Cochituate. While the unprotected waste burial was obviously dangerous for the local environment, even their containment shed was a problem. It wasn't built to contain anywhere near the amount of waste Mass Fusion produced. Instead, the employees at the site were dumping the waste. This likely contributed to the lethal radiation level in nearby Lake Quannapowitt. When a safety inspector caught onto their dumping, the staff of the containment shed murdered him, as they had been instructed by the Mass Fusion security chief, Captain Feld. It was likely thanks to the sickness caused by these fusion distribution boxes and the illegal dumping of nuclear waste that Mass Fusion incurred a sit-in protest in their lobby towards the end of summer 2077. This led the company to increase security measures. As horrible as the actions of Mass Fusion were, one has to hope that the developments in their R&D department in the summer of 2077 would have led them down the road to safety and proper environmental stewardship had the Great War not put a premature end to that. In June 2077, after years of hard work, the research team under Dr. Noel Chandrich was nearing completion of what would be Mass Fusion's seminal product, the beryllium agitator. The beryllium agitator is a device capable of cold-starting fusion and generating massive levels of power. The shielding for the agitator, seemingly the last part to be finished, was developed by Kathy Hathaway in the Materials Division, who had the idea of using graphene in the alloy. This pivotal contribution caused the research team lead Dr. Chandrich to recommend her for promotion, which frustrated at least one of his underlings. E. Denvers from Particle Theory believed that his 3 years working under Dr. Chandrich were hell, and that he deserved that promotion. Under pressure from company head Carl Oslo to finish the agitator by the end of July, Dr. Chandrich asked Kathy Hathaway to produce a full sheet of her shielding alloy. Just a week later, she delivered. The following day, Friday, July 30th, 2077, the beryllium agitator was installed in the primary reactor and was turned on. Just like that, the company produced 22,000 megawatts of clean fusion power. Unfortunately, the reason behind the rapid progress in the final days preceding the success caused destabilization at the top of the company. When Carl Oslo left Poseidon Energy 34 years prior, it seems that it had been an effort both to strike out on his own, but also to get away from his former employer's close ties with the government. Now, it appears that the accelerated schedule for the beryllium agitator had been a consequence of Mass Fusion cooperating with the military. Disturbed by this departure from Carl's original direction, Noel expressed his opposition to the fact that their operations were now being altered to serve the government's aims. He had believed that they were doing what they were doing to aid the people, not to kill the enemies of America. He felt that given the conditions in the world, it could not have been a more inappropriate time to shift away from working for the civil sector. Carl saw those same conditions as the primary reason to work for the military. They needed the agitator to help win the war. On Sunday, August 29, 2077, Dr. Chandrich reported the success of the agitator to Carl Oslo, telling him that after a month of use, the agitator was still operating within 1/1000% of its original state. 1 week later, on Sunday, September 5th, 2077, the argument between Noel and Carl came to a head. After having ignored some previous rhetorical jabs from Dr. Chandrich, Carl had had enough. He told Noel to get with the program or to get out. Dr. Chandrich opted for the latter, and he was escorted from the building. So angry was Carl that he effectively ruined his former research lead's career prospects, with HR threatening a lawsuit if Noel attempted to find a job with a rival nuclear power company. Along with this, Mass Fusion Security was told to alert Security Chief Feld if the doctor was seen within 100 yards of the building. While Dr. Noel Chandrich was gone, company operations went on. A few days prior to his firing on September 1st, 2077, the company hired 3 new interns under the Education at Work program, a 6-month project working towards college credit. These 3 interns were Alyssa Torres, a specialist in electrical engineering and energy capture, Daniel Montgomery, a postdoctorate in nuclear physics, and Jack Rockford in materials science. On Friday, September 17, 2077, these interns found themselves practically stranded on the upper floors of the Mass Fusion Tower. The tower had 2 elevators, one that prioritized servicing the upper floors, one that prioritized serving the lower. When the elevator prioritizing their section went down for maintenance, the interns faced an hour wait to get out of the building. Jack Rockford couldn't help but notice that there were, strangely enough, no emergency stairs giving them a way out of the building in the case of a disaster. This led him to develop the idea for the freefall legs, a pair of boots that used kinetic repulsion to allow the user to fall from any height and suffer no damage. As it turned out, Mass Fusion did not prioritize finding work for the interns, and they learned that much of their internship would involve brewing coffee and fetching papers for the full-time employees. An email from Ginny Berlin in Mainframe Control told the interns to focus on the work provided, leading the interns to work on their own projects after hours. While Jack Rockford worked on his freefall legs, Alyssa Torres performed research on fusion cells. Jack consulted with Daniel Montgomery on his boots, and he told Jack that he thought the concept was a bit nuts, even if the physics did work out properly. On Thursday, October 21st, 2077, Jack Rockford completed his freefall legs. He wanted to show them off at the right time, and he had a plan. During the upcoming holiday party, he would fall off the top of the tower wearing his boots and survive. He was sure that this act would secure him a position at the company. Until that glorious moment, he planned to keep his boots locked in his safe at the office. Unfortunately, Jack Rockford never got to demonstrate his brilliant invention. On the morning of Saturday, October 23rd, 2077, Jack stopped by the office to grab a few papers. When the bombs began to fall outside, he found himself trapped on the upper floors. Having forgotten his safe key at home, he couldn't get to his boots. He could either fall to his death or simply wait for the inevitable. He chose the latter. On Tuesday, October 26, 2077, he ran out of Nuka-Cola, the last of his supplies. After the death of Jack Rockford, the upper floors of Mass Fusion would lie vacant for over 210 years. In 2287, the Mass Fusion building became the center of the fight between the Brotherhood of Steel and the Institute, as both sought the beryllium agitator. Beneath the ruins of the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, the Institute sought the agitator to start their new mass reactor. At Boston Airport, the Brotherhood sought the agitator to power Liberty Prime, the massive robot they brought to Boston from the Capital Wasteland. If the sole survivor of Vault 111 sided with either faction, they would face down members of the opposite faction within the Mass Fusion building on their way to collect the beryllium agitator. Following this, if the sole survivor sided with the Brotherhood, Railroad, Minutemen, or various combinations of these 3 against the Institute, they blew up the Institute from the rooftop of Mass Fusion, creating something like the fireworks promised for the company's holiday party 210 years prior. That covers the narrative, but before closing things out, I have a few notes. First, I want to start this by saying that it's not explicitly stated that the fusion distribution boxes are actually micro-fission reactors. That's my belief as to what they are. I don't know how else to explain that these boxes require lead shielding, how opening the shielding can lead individuals to develop symptoms of radiation poisoning, nor how the company produced so much radioactive waste. Though fusion is still a power source that we have yet to master, and there are still things about it which we must learn, it is expected to produce 1/10 to 1/100th the radioactive waste produced by fission. Second, starting in April 2077, Mass Fusion opened a company store selling, quote, Mass Fusion branded hats, shirts, shorts, swimsuits, umbrellas, neckties, cufflinks, socks, tumblers, shot glasses, coffee mugs, and more. I'm not exactly sure who the target demographic was for these products, but anyway. Third, there are 2 employees that have a 4-month-long email chain. Specifically, we're talking about Victor Summers in Records and Ginny Berlin in Mainframe Control. Once a month in June, July, August, and September, Victor emailed Ginny a message pressuring her to answer a question, and she sent an email stalling on answering said question. While the chain maintains a tone so serious that one might assume that Victor proposed marriage to Ginny and was waiting for her response, it seems to be the case that Victor was attempting to get Ginny to adopt a puppy, if Jane Niles can be believed. Fourth, there was a group of 4 employees that were running a Dungeons & Dragons campaign in the opening days of August 2077. D. Wabash in Facilities was serving as the DM. X. Vincent, a reactor attendant, was playing the rogue Shadow Fiend. C. Collins in Reactor Control was playing the warrior Gandar. And B. Thorpe in Prototype Engineering was playing the wizard Tamash. Fifth, from what I've found, the 22,000 megawatts of electricity generated at Mass Fusion exceeds the modern-day electricity use of the state of Massachusetts. I found that information via Google's AI, so take it with a grain of salt. Lastly, Jack Rockford's freefall legs could be a reference to the boots of Spring-Heeled Jack from Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. Both items reduce fall damage to 0. The boots of Spring-Heeled Jack are themselves a reference to Spring-Heeled Jack, an urban legend of Victorian Britain. Alright, I think that'll do it for this video. Follow me on X for lore video announcements at Gaming with Maps. My Discord is open to the public. There's a link in the channel's banner. I stream every Friday evening on YouTube. Come check it out if you're interested. If you appreciate what I do here and you want to support the channel financially, you can become a member on YouTube or a patron of Patreon. I want to thank my channel members and patrons, Mesothelioma, 76 of Texas, Dark Malcontent, Real76, Dr. Orion, Samsung Smart Fridge, Night Spearhead, Ahotep, Despy, Electric Head, Hero Cunning, Laced Cake, and E for their support. I also want to specifically thank Dark Malcontent for helping with this video's script. This has been the Irresolute Cartographer. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.